Okay, let's start building. Now, before I dive into the actual design here of the hero section, I want to do the basic setup for the project. So this project uses a font, a Google font that is called Rethink. So I went ahead and uploaded it like we already saw how to do. And back in my project, what I did is created the variables that we have here, the colors that we will need to use in the project. So we've got 5 colors. So now they're set as variables. It will be easier to find them. I also created the variable for brand font for the Rethink. So it will be easier to use that anytime we want to. So we've got the basic uploads, I guess the basic variable setup. I will choose the body here and edit the native body tag just to set up the background as black. So we can pick from our variables the black. For typography, I'll put white, and I'll use the basic font size of the project, which is 18, and I'll choose the font brand font, which is, it's actually normal. Yeah, that's okay. So we've got the basic body set up. Let's also do the basic structure. So let's bring in a div for page wrapper. So let's call this page wrapper. And then inside, let's create another div for the main. So let's call this page main and go into the settings and turn that into main. And we already know why that is important. And inside that, we can bring in the first section, which we will call hero section. Okay, so we've got the basic structure here. And now let's actually take a look at the design. Now, one thing that is important to note about this website, and that sometimes happens in creative out-of-the-box website, is this website actually doesn't have a container. Now, previously, we saw that most websites has a container that keeps most of the content centered, but you can see here that the image goes all the way to the side. And yeah, there's a little bit of a padding on the left side, but basically if this website is even wider, the text is always going to align to the left and the image is going to take up more space. So we don't actually have a centered container here. Even here on this next section, yes, we have a padding on the left side, but the content actually overflows on the right side. It's not maintained in the center. And then we have a full width video section with typography that is responsive. So again, no container here. And even in the footer call to action, there's no container here. So this is pretty, again, traditionally, and in most website designs, all the content is going to be inside of a container. But sometimes in creative websites and creative designs like this, there is no need for a container. So we don't need that. Now let's take a look at the hero section and try to understand how are we going to structure this, right? We need to understand what do we have here and how we want this to function in order to make sure that we're building the right structure. So basically what I see in this hero section is 3 layers. We've got the background layers that has all of these grid and little lines, but that's basically a decorative background. And on top of it, we've got this 3D shoe that is going to rotate or interact with us. And on top of that, we've got the actual content, text and button that we need to basically interact with, right? And I'm not doing the navigation in this video. I'll just focus on building the hero. We'll do the navigation a little bit later. So we already understand that if we have 3 layers of things overlapping, we'll probably need to use absolute positioning so that we can bring in the background behind the actual content. So in terms of Z index, how high the layer is, we can set the background to Z index of 0 so that it's at the back. On top of it, we can put the shoe at Z index of 1, meaning on top of the background. And we can put the content as Z index 2 on top of both of them. So this is the structure that I have in mind. I also want to take a look at the responsive or mobile breakpoint that we have here, because we also need to see, you can see that the grid is actually changing. These lines that are here on the side are actually going to move down into the bottom here. And so this is really interesting to think, how are we going to build this background? And in this case, it makes sense to really use a grid. This is a grid and it's going to be a good use of the grid, and we'll be able to move this column here into a different row on smaller breakpoints. So seems good. Let's get started. Now, the way that I'll build this is I'll start with the content, and this content probably needs to take up the wrapper of this content should basically push to make sure that this hero section is 100% viewport. And then afterwards, we'll build the background. And in the next video, we will put in the 3D element. Okay, so let's get started. Let's go back into our build and let's bring in another div, which we'll call hero content. And let's think about that. We know that we want this to be 100 viewport height so that it takes up the whole screen. So that is a good beginning. We actually also need a little bit of padding. Now we can decide whether we put it on the hero content or on the hero section. I guess we can put it on the hero content. So we can create padding from the left, and we can see here that there is 90 pixels on the left and 90 or 80 pixels on the bottom. So we can go ahead, and we're very likely to want to reuse this padding throughout the website. So it is consistent here as well and here as well. So I think we're going to use this 90 number. Let's create a variable so that we can really always reuse the same padding space that we have. So in this case, let's go ahead and create padding of 90. Actually, let's hit here to create a new variable, and let's call this global padding, because we always want to use that. And then let's put that at 90. Save it, and that's great. So now we can pull that on all sides, and that is great. So now the content is going to have padding from all sides. This is really, really great. We can start bringing in maybe the H1 and a button, which is what we have here. So let's bring in an H1, and let's bring in a button, and then let's style them. And by the way, we want them to align to the bottom here. So this hero content, we can turn into a flex, align it horizontally, and just click here to align it to the bottom left corner, and that looks good. In terms of text, we have here precision, power, perfection. I'm going to copy that here, and I'm going to hit return on every line to break 3 lines. Now let's see. So this H1 is 90 pixels on 90 pixels. So we can go here, edit the native H1 tag, and we're going to set size as 90 and line height as 90. I actually think that maybe we can make that a little bit tidier like this. Okay, so this looks good. And then for the button, we do need to have, for the call to action is 24 pixels. So that's pre-order now. And we've got this green background with round corners. So let's give this a class of CTA button. Change the background color from our variables to lime, the color of the text to black. We can paste the pre-order now. And this was size 24. I actually think this was also bold. Yeah, it looks like bold. So we're going to select the bold face here. And by the way, for the font, I just uploaded the 2 weights that we're using, which is regular and then bold. And let's go ahead into the round corners of this button and hit 999. So it would make it completely round. And I think we can give this a little bit more padding from top to bottom and a little bit more from left and right. I'm holding the option key to symmetrically add padding from both sides. And I think this is good. I think we can also give this H1 heading a little bit more margin on the bottom so that we have a little bit more space like this. Okay, so we've got the first layer. And by the way, let's go ahead for hero content and turn this into relative so that we get access to the Z index, and then we'll set the Z index to 2. So that is the topmost layer. Okay, this is really, really great. Now I want to go and create the background. Now, just so that I have easier time to see, I'm going to set this display to none to hide this basically hero content while we're working on the background, and then we'll bring it back to visibility. So let's see what we have here in the grid background. First of all, I can turn on the grid in Figma, and I have 8-column grid here, and I can see that basically this column here, this first column is basically 2 columns. The middle column is 4 columns. And then we've got a single column and a single column. So I'm going to try and recreate the grid that we have here in Webflow. So let's go ahead and first of all, create a new wrapper for this background inside the hero section. So I'm going to hit Command E, bring in a div. Let's call this hero background. And of course, we want this to be in the background. So we're going to turn the positioning to absolute. We're going to set this to fill, and we're going to set the Z index to 0. So it's behind everything else. And that is great. And let's actually turn this into a grid. And when we're playing with the grid, we can actually add, we need 8 columns. Actually, it's going to be easier to manage it from here. So 8 columns, and then how many rows we need. So basically, I want to disregard the navigation for a second. So we have 1, 2, 3 rows. Okay. So I'm going to do 3 rows, and I'm going to hit here so that I can see what we have. Okay, and this is a good start. I can see that if I take out the navigation, basically the first 2 rows are in a way equal size, and then the third one is actually half or maybe 1/3 of these. So let's use the sizing of the rows that we've got here. Instead of auto, let's put the last one as 1 FR, and then we can set the 2 rows above as 3FR, so they are each triple the size of the bottom row. So now we have a structure that is in line with what we need. The third row is basically a third of each of these. And so this is a good starting position. We also don't need the gap between these elements, so I can reduce the gap to actually 0. And let's see how this looks. Okay, so this is exactly what we need at this point. And what am I going to do next? Again, I'm always going to want to remove this just so that I can see. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to add divs inside to create these spaces and maybe give each of them this gray outline just so that we can visibly see the grid. So let me bring inside of this grid. Let's hit Command E to bring in a div. So we've got a div in here, and let's call this Hero BG gray outline. And I'm just going to go down here into the border, add a border of 1 in this. Let's see if this light gray is what we need, or this gray. Maybe this gray is what we need. Okay, so now I've got a single column here, and actually the first one we need it to be 2, right? So this is the first cell. Let's copy and paste this a few more times. 2, 3, 4, 5. The second one is actually going to be double this, so 4 columns on 2 rows. Here, these are going to be 1 column but 2 rows, and this is also going to be, yes, we can put it here as 2 columns. Okay, and then lastly we have, no, here actually we have 1, 2, 3, 4, so we need 4 more divs. So let's copy and paste this. Whoa, this is really, let's turn this way. Okay, wait, it's not what I need. 1, 2, this actually needs to, exactly. Okay, so this takes up the space, this takes up the space. 1, 2, this one goes all the way here, and then I can actually take this here, or I need 2 grids there. Yeah, so these are 2 columns here, 1 and 1. Okay, fantastic. So now let's preview this. Now I have this grid visible in the background in exactly the same layout that we have. Maybe one thing that I want to do is for this hero gray outline, because basically I can see double lines here when they are overlapping these divs. So maybe I'm going to set the margin on -1 on all sides, and let's see what that creates. No, that's not really helpful. Maybe I just need to change the width to 0.5 pixel. Yeah, exactly. So if I want to have, because we've got border from both sides of these divs, if I want to have 1 pixel in the middle, just like we have here, then it's best if I have 0.5 pixel, together there'll be a pixel. So now we've got the setup right here, and it's really nice. It's also going to be responsive because the grid is responsive, and this is really, really nice. Okay, so we've got the basic setup. Now we need to, on some of them, add a bunch of stuff. Like here, we need to add this gradient. So let's give this hero background a combo class. We'll call this hero bg grad 1, and then we'll go into the background, add a gradient here, and let's select, what colors do we have here? So basically this is, I don't know if this is a variable that we have. So let's just take the colors from here and paste them here. And the other one is black. Not fully black, but almost black, maybe. I'm going to paste that here, and I'm going to rotate the gradient. No, the left is on the other side. So tick, 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 tick. Okay, so we got the first gradient. We also have another gradient right here. So we can go here and give this hero bg grad 2 and do the same. Go and add a gradient. This time I think it's white, or maybe it's not fully white. Or it's, sorry, from lime to this light gray. So let's go from lime. Where's my gradient? There we go. Here, instead of this, we can pick the lime. Instead of the black, we can maybe pick the gray or light gray. Yeah, I think that's it. Fantastic. Okay, so we've got the 2 gradients. Now, inside this one, we basically need to bring in the Lottie file. So let's go ahead and actually upload the Lottie asset that we have. And it's inside of the Lottie folder. We've got this pulsating circles wave JSON. and that's going to upload it into our assets. Now we can't really see it, it's too small, but I can drag it in here, and then it's going to bring the element inside. I can even preview the animation here, which is pretty cool. Basically what I want to do is I want to set this to loop, so this animation is always looping in the background. And I also want to make sure this takes up the whole space inside of this grid. And maybe we actually need to make it a little bit bigger. Let's call this Lottie, hero background Lottie. And let's make this a little bit wider. So 120%. And 120% just to make sure that we don't see any of this cropping. Maybe I can even pull this a little bit back using the margin. Something like this, or maybe, maybe a little bit like this and a little bit like this. I'm just going to eyeball it, just so that it overflows a little bit. And I'm going to go and select the parent element, this hero gray outline, and I'm going to set overflow hidden. So let's just create a new combo class called overflow hidden, and select and make the overflow hidden so that we don't see it. Now let's preview this. Okay, and it's animating quite nicely. I think I maybe need to pull it up a little bit more. Just a little bit more. Maybe something like this. Okay, that's nice. Okay, so we've got the Lottie animation in the background. Now these ones just have like a normal SVG that's inside of them. Let's see it right here from the, yeah, this should be it. Fantastic. Okay, so this looks good. I'm also going to give this a class hero BG lines, just to make sure that we're setting it into 100% width, so it always fills up this column no matter what's the size of it. And lastly, we want to bring in the zigzags in here. So let's find the zigzags. Yep, it's this. Fantastic. And actually, I'm going to use the same one, hero BG lines, just to make sure. Hero BG lines, so that this is also 100% width. And I think that with that, we're basically done with the background. Let's bring back our visibility of the hero content. Let's turn that back into flex. So here's one thing that I'm thinking about. I really want the line of the grid to align maybe with the typography here. So with the grid, we created this grid. Where's the grid? The third row as 1FR. Another option is to just change this to something fixed like 90% or something like this, so it would align exactly to maybe the button. So let's change that maybe from 1FR to 90 pixels and see what happens if I do that. Yeah, you see, so now the column is exactly 90 pixels, which is exactly the bottom padding that we have for the content itself. So now the line is perfectly aligning with the button, which is what I wanted. And we basically have the hero structure ready. All we have to do is in the next video, we'll bring in the 3D shoe as Z index of 1 between the background and the content. So I'll see you in the next video.